Make sure.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Lily Nova Starseed, and she is an ET contactee, an ET channeler, and of course a Starseed. So welcome to the channel.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's wonderful meeting you.
Yeah, I know that my audience will love you, and I did a video yesterday or maybe the day before mentioning that I'm going to have more intuitives and more healers and more channelers on my channel, and I was talking about you. So I saw how I heard about you is I saw you on Mark Atwood's show, and I saw about 10 minutes and I was like, I really like her energy. I can tell she is in her heart space. So I wanted to have you on. And so here you are. So I'm super excited. And I kind of wanted to ask you, maybe we can start about like when you started to awaken, like when did your ET contact start and how that happened for you?
Yeah, so that's a perfect way to start because it's been a very interesting journey. So this all started for me about a year and a half ago. I've always been intuitive, empathic, kind of maybe like the black sheep, and always drawn to the stars, curious about, what else is out there. I've always been an artist, but I wasn't into UFOs, although I was open to them. And about a year and a half ago, well, whenever COVID started and lockdown happened, I went to the stars and started taking pictures, doing astrophotography. So I spent like every night, I just became obsessed with it. I fell in love with it. And a couple months after doing that, I had my first UFO encounter, and it was a very close encounter, very, very close. I stepped outside of my house and a ship appeared just like a few houses down, and it was a really big, pretty big ship. It looked like it could fit at least like a crew of 5 at least, and it was a big diamond shape. It moved around and then came straight towards me, straight to my house above my head, and disappeared. And then ever since then, I began just seeing them left and right. And so first it started off by me documenting them, coming at it from kind of like a scientific mindset, like what are these, who are they, how are they appearing and disappearing, and what are they trying to tell me? And a communication evolved between them, and I learned how to initiate contact with them, and they began teaching me just everything. I wasn't a very spiritual person before this. They taught me about how the universe works. They helped me develop my psychic abilities, and it's just like blew the door wide open for everything. So I've been training really closely with them for the past year and a half, and I'm finding that there are actually a lot of other people who are beginning to just suddenly, rapidly awaken.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. So this would have been in 2020, correct? Where you
Yes.
thought, and when you say a diamond shape, would you say it was like the Space Force logo almost? Like sort of like that, or?
Kind of, yeah. It was diamond with 2 rows of lights going across it. The top light was red, and the bottom one was like a bluish green. But I remember it being some sort of a shape. I don't think it was like perfect diamond, but that was the main shape. It was some sort of geometrical shape that I'd never seen before.
The reason I asked is because the same thing has happened to me. And I used to live in Florida, and I remember I had this, like, something was like, go look outside right now. So I went outside, and this was loud. I mean, it was like a plane driving like really close over my roof, like very, very close, super loud. And it was a diamond shape. And I saw it clear as day. I mean, I didn't get it on camera. I was like, like this. And I now know who it was. But what was strange is I went back into my house and I asked the people living with me, I was like, did you guys hear that? Because it was literally like a flyby, like you would see on Top Gun or something. I was like, did you guys see that? They didn't hear anything. They didn't see anything. It's funny, like, have you had that experience where maybe someone next to you doesn't see the same thing?
Yeah, 100%. And that made it hard for others to believe me at first. Now they just know that, I see UFOs, I pick up on things that others can't. But yeah, that definitely happened. And it even happened the other way. I was out stargazing with my brother and I was talking to them telepathically. I'm like, show him something, because he doesn't believe. And even though he has seen one, he just kind of like shut it down. And within the matter of like 5 seconds, he saw 5 shooting stars right after I asked them to show him something. And I didn't see them. I was looking at the same sky and I didn't see them. So I think it has, they can do it for specific people, and others who are standing right next to you can't see. And I feel like it can go both way and probably has something to do with vibration as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. What kind of camera do you use?
I use a Nikon DSLR. It's a D5300, and sometimes I use an Aurora night vision camera as well.
So I'll have to get one. I've like tried to, when you look at the sky and it's not a star and it starts to move a little bit, I've tried to get it on my iPhone. It doesn't work at all. Although I have gotten like cloud shaped, like where it's really like a cloaked ship and it's a cloud. I've been able to take pictures of those. But you sent me in an email like some amazing photos of clouds too, like faces in the clouds and orbs. So I think your photography, where do you post those kinds of videos?
So I started sharing all of this immediately on TikTok. I made a new TikTok account because I was just getting them left and right, and I knew I was like, "Do you guys want me to share this?"
Yeah.
They made it pretty obvious that they wanted me to share it, so I began posting my footage on there, and I have some of it on YouTube as well. I have a video called "How to Make Contact with UFOs and CE5," and it has some of the footage. But it's interesting that you mentioned the cloud thing, because at first it was all night encounters, which are very hard to catch on camera, very hard. And then it switched to, I remember the first time that I actually made contact with them and a golden orb appeared. And that was the first night that I actually saw what they look like. They showed me a telepathic vision, like they sent me a vision of a female with light blue skin, a silver uniform on, skin tight, and no hair, but she looked very human. She was very beautiful. So just a light blue skin bald woman and crew members behind her. So that was the first one that I saw, and I worked very closely with them afterwards. But after that, I realized, okay, I can initiate contact with them, and I began doing it during the day. And that's whenever you really get the good stuff, because you can see it better. And they began communicating with me through the clouds.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Did you get it, like, did they tell you what their race was right away, or did you get an idea of where they were from?
They kind of gave me bits and pieces at a time.
Yeah.
A little bit later, I found out that they were Lyran. They told me that they were Lyran.
Yeah. I find it overwhelming to the psyche if they don't ever come through and like tell you the whole universe at once, right? It's like little bits and pieces until you're ready to like develop the whole picture. Because
Exactly.
it can be like, for me, it can be very like I remember when I started to awaken and I was nursing, I was a nurse and I'm having these experiences and I'm like, what the F? Like, it's like you're living between two worlds. So it's very like, regimented, I think, in that way too. Um, when
Yeah.
you were a child,
I didn't even find out that I was a star seed until maybe like 6 months in. And I bawled my eyes out whenever I found out I was actually like one of them, and that's why they were contacting me. So yeah, they give you bits and pieces at a time.
there's like an emotional connection that I think a lot of, when I've watched maybe people in the secret space program or other contactees, that I think is forgotten, that it's a very emotional thing to understand about yourself, because these people are your family, right? So it's like you have a family here and you have a family there, and there's a subconscious like longing to be with them, right? I mean, it's very like emotional. So when you were a child, like, were you very intuitive? Did you have experiences as a child? How did that go for you?
I've been thinking a little bit more about that lately. So I've always been intuitive and empathic. didn't like crowds of people, always going against the grain. I spent a lot of time like drawing and writing stories. And actually, I would draw pictures and make up storylines, and thinking back on the stories and the pictures I was drawing, it was definitely like ET inspired. I remember I was drawing cat people with feline faces and human bodies at like 6 years old. And now I realize, those were Lyrans. And I remember looking at like a candle and trying to get it to move. So like little pieces of it, were coming through, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But after I went to the SSP conference from Journey to Truth podcast, I realized that I have had childhood contact, and those memories are slowly like, slowly starting to come out.
Piece together. Yeah, when I was a kid, well, actually, like the other day, I went to a big event for the 4th of July over the weekend, and there was probably like 45 people there, and I was like, I can't deal with this. There's so many people, but I've always been like that because I'm sensitive to energy. So I find, obviously you would be the same, like concerts, big crowds. I was like that as a kid too. And I know after like my abductions, I became obsessed with like astronauts, and I started building like toy planes. Like that was my version of like a UFO, building planes. And so did you notice, like after you started having contact and taking these pictures, like your psychic abilities opening up, and how did that transfer over into helping other people?
Yeah. So my main ability, and I'm discovering more as we go, has been vision with a third eye. So I worked very heavily with them last summer. I turned into a straight monk and meditated like every day, all day, hours and hours at a time. Not saying that anybody else has to do that, but that's how I developed my vision, and I could see it before my very third eye, developing. So I received visions, and so I began being able to communicate telepathically, and I worked on my intuition like a muscle. If you become aware of it and you practice it, it gets stronger. So I worked very much with that. And then also new gifts are beginning to develop, telekinesis, and something called visual toning. I just found this out the past week. It has to do with my Lyran heritage, and the Pleiadians told me this, but because of my Lyran heritage, I'm able to produce tones that the normal, human beings can't, and they have the capacity to heal at a quantum level. So, and I knew there was something going on with my voice too. I didn't quite understand exactly what it was yet. And what really helped developing these abilities, just interacting with them, is going to help a lot. And then focusing on activating your DNA, because we have all of these gifts, and everybody has a unique DNA, they have unique heritage, unique spiritual DNA. They've had all of these gifts, and what I found is they're just kind of like locked away inside of you, dormant, and you can begin to activate them. So
that is so cool. We have so much in common. As you're talking, like, oh my God, I want to say this. Okay, so the tone of voice, like I've noticed, like the ETs, if you've ever heard their voice, it's like very healing. It's almost like I'll hear like the voice, it's like will instantly like clear my energy field. So, and it's a different vibrational frequency. So that makes a lot of sense. And then you just kind of like put two and two together that that's in our DNA, or that's in your DNA too, right? So they taught me a while back, like DNA activations, and basically that like raising the frequency of the soul or the light body will activate the DNA of the body, right? And so I kind of learned that too as well. But yeah, that's super interesting. And so like your psychic ability, and I also did this too, where I basically turned everything off. Like I deleted all my social media, I stopped watching TV, and I meditated for like at least an hour in the morning and an hour at night, and sometimes in the middle of the day, like depending on my work schedule, to strengthen my third eye. Because and I'm sure you know this, but for the audience, like when you watch TV, you're perceiving an image instead of the other way around, instead of like inside of your brain, it's coming from outside, if that makes sense. And that's how I strengthened my clairvoyant abilities, was by like shutting every single thing off. So would you say like you see mostly images and that's how your psychic ability works too, along with the telekinesis?
Yeah, yeah, that's a majority of it. Like whenever I do meditations and reading, sometimes I will receive words, and they've been they've been testing that with me lately. So sometimes I'll receive words in different ways too. It's like sometimes I can hear it, but then other times I can like feel it, but it's still like a sentence that just plops right in your head. But a majority of it has been visually, and then as I receive the image, like they would show me themselves, almost like remote viewing them, or show me a scene, and it would come with like a, you know, an understanding of it and a feeling, also interpreting the feelings of it. And more recently, since I started doing live activations on my YouTube, and that's how I'm teaching people and helping to activate their DNA and activate their gifts. And I found out that the telekinesis that I'm also learning is, you know, I'm helping them shift that energy within their body. So it's just really, really exciting. But that's more new, and yes, visually has been for the most. But I found everybody is so different that some people can like see energy while you're just sitting there. Some people, I met a woman who, her awakening began 6 months ago. I had a call with her last week. She's a teacher. And suddenly she's communicating with all of these beings, and she like wrote up like a 4-page document full of just all of these details. So she's like what I call like a master communicator. She's able to like decipher the energy and translate into words. So it just comes really different for so many people, which is exciting. Very
Yeah, I
exciting.
totally agree. Like the way that our brains perceive energy, it's different for everyone.
Mhm.
So there's this saying too, like pay attention to the more attention to the message than the messenger, because all of our brains receive the information differently. And I'm wondering like too, because this is kind of my passion and why I wanted to have you on. How do you know like what energy you're picking up on? Is it negative or positive?
Mhm. So I learned some hard lessons while all of this was beginning to develop, because I like dropped everything. I was a nutritionist before this. Whenever the UFOs started coming, like I dropped that because I knew this is a really big deal. And I wasn't even like working at the time. I focused all of my intention on this and developing my gifts. And I learned some lessons, like, so visually, like I never came across any like negative ETs, but I did come across some visions. I would receive some visions that were not so pleasant.
Right.
And how I learned to get over that, it was kind of like a two-part thing, was or three-part thing, is setting up very strong energetic boundaries, and being very specific about what you are connecting with and what you are inviting. So just, I always say, you know, I'm only connecting with, you know, the highest love and light. And anytime like I'll receive a vision where it's something that kind of makes me feel like question it, I just say, nope, I'm, you know, like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
There's no consent there. And now I don't have to worry about it. But in the beginning, you know, you kind of have to like learn those things. And then another piece of it that I worked very hard on was also, they told me that through past trauma, some of these things were getting in like through my root chakra. So I focused very, and not being grounded, just being too much
Mhm.
up here. I don't know if everybody will have to, you know, go through that or work through that. Actually, I'm finding that others don't have a problem like that, but it's always good to be specific and set up, you know, strong energetic boundaries. Um, and also not calling out to anything or inviting anything whenever you're in a really bad mood. You want to be in a, you know, like a high vibe state.
Yeah.
Just raise your vibration, and that's what you will, you know, attract.
Yeah, I agree. So like if something triggers me or I'm upset about something, I'll do a meditation where I look at myself, or like I'm assisted at looking at myself in like a third party point of view, where I can kind of see like where's the trauma and where's that energy coming from within myself. I don't automatically like link up or try and find something outside of myself, like if I'm in a bad mood. But I know, like, I think that if you are a psychic or if you have intuitive abilities, the chances of you picking up on a negative entity at least one time are very high. It's kind of like driving a car. Like, there will be someone who cuts you off. There will be, like, it will happen. And I think it's valuable because it's part of discernment, you know, and
Yeah.
part of seeing like the different frequencies or the different energies. Luckily, like I'm like you, I'm very visual. So like I'll get an image and like there'll be something off about it. Like it'll make me feel weird. I'm like, oh, I don't really like that, you know, and then automatically I do the same thing, like block it out.
Mhm.
And so I think that takes time to develop. And also I think reading for real people helps your discernment because it makes you understand your psychic abilities, how you're perceiving the energy, and if you're accurate or not, you know,
Mhm.
and if the person tells you that you're accurate and how it's coming through, like you'll learn. Like when I first started out, like I would see an image like as a symbol, and like my abilities have developed over time, but like a symbol that meant something and I'd have to figure it out and it would be for that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Are you
uh,
like,
yeah, there's been times with readings, and it still happens sometimes, where I'll, receive an image or something, and then I'm like, I don't really understand fully what it means, but then whenever I tell them, they're like freaking out. So it does come like that sometimes.
would you say like, so would you consider yourself more like mediumistic or a channeler, or how do you differentiate between those names? Or
Well, I don't really talk to like spirits. I have had like my family, my dad and my grandmother, and some spirits have come to speak with me and give me messages. Um, I think, and this is developing. So it was very much in the beginning, I would see all of these different ETs, tons of different ETs. Like every time I closed my eyes, there was a different type of ET. And I'm like learning all of this, very quickly. So I'm able to connect with people's guides, galactic guides, and see visions of their star family. And honestly, I think a lot of it is also just source showing me what they need to know and what they need to see. And then channeling with the tones and the telekinesis, where I'm helping to move energy in people's bodies. So I'm channeling, something higher. And then during like my live activations and even during my sessions, this has just been developing very rapidly, very quickly. But I think it was like last week or the week before, I had two like coaching calls where they just immediately after I started kind of talking to them in whatever intuitively was coming through, they began feeling like surges of energy going up their arms. So, and that happened with a reading too. And so I think it's evolving, and I'm channeling in some way that is also, affecting their energy. And then also with galactic guides and even source too,
yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah, it does. And like my experience is those, like whether it's an ET or like a family member, it'll always come through like on the link of love. So there'll always be a love vibration. And that's why I like to give in my message or some of my messages on YouTube, like it's important to love yourself, because if you don't fully recognize like the love for yourself, then it's hard to recognize the love like when it comes outside of you. It could be something appealing to your ego to try and make you feel better because there's a lack vibration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's like another big thing that they were teaching me. I'm sure like we've had a lot of trauma in this life and past lives, especially just being, more sensitive to that and just who we are. so that was one of the like big things that I worked on in what I call boot camp. All last summer, I felt like I was in a boot camp. They were teaching me lessons every day. And like I would feel this unconditional love from them and from source, just from higher realms. And I would bawl my eyes out and my heart would swell. And at first it was very, very hard to accept like a love that pure.
Mhm.
And as I worked on myself and, began to believe in myself more and love myself more, then it just began to like change everything. And you can know if you are connecting something. I don't think that anything negative can fake love. So that's, feeling your heart space and feeling that love is that's how you're connecting with something that's good.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I find when I go to like a higher energy or to my contact for advice, it's mirrored back to me, like mirrored back to me of what I need to know. So it's very like individual. Like I'll say this like politely, but I'm always reminded that it's like my problem or like something within me that I need to work on versus like maybe a relationship with someone else they need to change or something external that needs to change. So I notice sometimes that there might be some people or a lot of us, it's human nature not to want to do that, right? If we don't want to work on ourselves and do the work and maybe think it's cool to be psychic because you get to know everything, which isn't true. I really don't get like predictions for myself. Actually, I've like given up at this point. But that's like also something that I've noticed. Like it's very like self focused or like what I can work on too.
Mhm.
So do you do like what kind of coaching do you do? Like you do coaching and readings?
Yeah, so I started doing readings for people after I was able to like access the Akashic records. I think the readings that I do is kind of like a combination of accessing some Akashic records, but I'm finding that it's not as much about, well, I get the details, what they need to know. And just whatever they need to work on, what their star origins, and able to like paint that picture for them and help activate that within them. I really focus on helping people to discover their star origins and also begin to develop that relationship within themselves and begin to be able to make contact with their star family, so that my main thing is I want to help people activate their DNA, activate their gifts, and also develop a relationship with these being themselves, their star family. Um, so that's what the star origins readings do. And then I also started doing coaching and consulting for just starseed awakening, could be developing gifts, could be making contact with UFOs, just anything that I can help people with, really.
That's awesome. Yeah, it can be like lonely to go through a spiritual awakening. Like when you, because oftentimes, like, well, my experience was like no one else around me was on that path at all. So the
Yeah.
only friends that I made were like online or someone like yourself that would offer those services. So that's really helpful. I want to know, like, have they given any messages as to like, because I know people might be watching and they're like, well, why haven't I had experiences like Megan or Lily yet? Like, have they given any messages about that, or do you have answers for that?
Mm, I feel like it really just depends on the path. And also, well, you want to have like pure intentions. And I know that some people they may try once, not saying that anybody in the audience has done this, but they may try once and then they give up. What I find is really helpful, and I learned this through like CE5 and actually like making contact with them, and through like filming the UFOs and stuff, is it helps whenever you develop some sort of a practice and stick with it. Um, and you have to do some of that inner work. But I think some people, it just wasn't in their plan to have any of those experiences yet. And I believe as things go, like a lot of people are going to start having experiences. If they haven't already, they're going to start, like through my live activations that I do on my YouTube channel every Sunday. I'm just blown away. People are emailing me with these crazy experiences. So I feel like it's contagious and it's starting to spread. So if you haven't, don't feel bad. It is most likely coming.
So you feel like, because one of my like realizations is like in the UFO and the spiritual community, like there are thousands of us, and we've like, I feel like we've really just skimmed the surface of like how many people are having contact. Like I think it's like a lot more than is maybe than we're being presented with on YouTube or like on social media. So do you feel the same way? Like there are tons?
Yeah, I was actually like really, really blown away as I started sharing my experiences. I had so many people coming to me that have had experiences or they feel like there's something there and they're drawn to it. There's a lot more of us than you'd think. And it's growing. People are just starting, just like that woman who I had a call with last week. And also she's going through this alone. She doesn't have anybody to talk to. She's like a grade school teacher. And it and she really booked a call with me to just share what has been going on and to make sure that she's not going crazy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're not crazy. You're in what I call boot camp, where things are just happening very rapidly. But so she had nothing before that, and then just 6 months ago, it just like took off. So yeah, I believe there's a lot more of us out there, and it's going to continue to rise.
Yeah, I think it's always like healthy too to question, like in some respects, the information you get, because you want to make sure that you're getting it from the right place and that you're psychically safe. But then, there's also feelings of like, oh my God, I'm insane.
Very
And
true.
what would you say too? Because I was having this thought the other day, like, what's the difference? And I don't like to use this label, but between receiving psychic information from a higher energy source or maybe like mental illness or schizophrenia. Like, and I don't like to put those labels, but just for intensive purposes, what we're talking about. Do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. So I met somebody last summer who had experiences with interdimensional beings, and in UFOs and stuff, and like nobody believed him. But then that like piqued my interest, so I wanted to talk to him about it. But then also I witnessed him kind of go off the deep end. So I feel like some people may um, they may maybe experiencing these things, but they just don't. I don't want to say they don't know how to handle it, but it's something just goes wrong. And so I think that maybe some schizophrenic people or some people with mental illness maybe are experiencing some of these interdimensional things. It's just not balanced or something like that. But that has I've always really been into mental health, so that also makes me curious.
Yeah, I haven't like totally figured it out. I mean, like I have my own opinion. I think some people like they really do have experiences. And then, like you said, it's like they have past trauma too. And so they kind of twist it in and it can be turned into paranoia. And then there's negative entities involved. And it's all kind of like a cluster of, I don't want to say negativity, but like a cluster of confusion where their energy isn't clear to like process the information. And
Yeah.
then I think there's some people that maybe are hijacked or they have negative entity attachments that are, making them confused and like telling them to hurt people or hurt themselves and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. It was just a thought that I had the other day. So I was like, oh, I think I'll ask her.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yeah, I
see.
think it can go hand in hand. Like it's multiple things just coming together.
Yeah.
Like the negative entities, negative energy, trauma, and then mixed in with your own, just your own stuff.
Have they ever like mentioned to you like how we activate each other, like how different star seeds being around each other activates each other? Like have they
Mm-hmm.
ever given you an impression of that?
Well, I think awareness is just a big piece of it. It's like sometimes, well, often through my readings, I give them a bit of information, and that's just like part of that automatically activates a little bit, because
Right.
then they're aware of it, and then more of that information just starts coming to them. So awareness is a lot of it, I believe. Just our energy being around, the light that we're giving off. Somebody that I'm really close with, they didn't believe me at all about anything for a while in the beginning. And now, they're not surprised by anything I say. And now I've noticed they're becoming more open-minded. So I think just being around people, and then also becoming aware of one thing, then that leads to another thing. And then also through these through like the live activations that I'm doing on YouTube, just they explained to me that you can channel these energies to them and activate them from just being you, like just being us right now on the screen is helping to activate people through pictures, like your cloud UFO pictures, and through my UFO pictures, just the energies in it. So it's channeling. So I think just like a combination of all of those things.
Yeah, I got the same in like different words, but that, basically having a higher frequency or being of a higher frequency will raise other people's frequency, and then maybe people have different thoughts or start to think about things a little bit differently. And so that's why I'm always told, like, and I feel this way, to always keep the vibration like really high, super high, transcend your own trauma. And that really like is part of the Starseed mission. Like at the core of it is to basically raise the vibration, and like whatever you do it in the highest vibration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm noticing that other people it's working. People are starting to become more open-minded to it. Like the
Yeah.
guy at the AT&T store the other day who helped me switch my phone over, like he was prying, asking questions because I told him I was a content creator. And then finally I was like, yeah, like I film and make contact with UFOs. And right after he told me he was like a religious person, because I told him I did spiritual content too, and he was actually like, wow, that's really cool. I was so surprised to hear him say that. So it's working. It's a process.
It is a process. Okay, well, do you have any like last messages? Where can people find you? I know your YouTube channel is Lily Nova Starseed, is that correct? But you also have a big TikTok account. Can you share?
Yeah, so I make that's how I started to, was making like short form content on TikTok. My TikTok name is lilynova.in.space, and my Instagram is the same. I post content on all of those, tips for like making contact. Sometimes I'll share some of my UFO footage, developing abilities, and just starseed awakening. And sometimes I'll share channeled messages as well. And I also have DNA activation kits coming that I'm working on, that I'm very excited about. And so I'll be announcing those on those, and those will, I'll be channeling that to, you'll be able to feel it in your body with these DNA activation kits. So that's what I'm working on now. And yeah, Lily Nova Starseed is my YouTube channel. And last words, I'd say, what I found is everybody has a unique just combination of different gifts. It comes very differently for others, and we all have a piece to the puzzle. So they've told me that it just takes us coming together and, helping each other and activating our DNA, and we are going to be unstoppable. So.
Oh, I love that. I feel the same way. I'll let you end with that. But I'll make sure to put all of your links in the description of this video. And then hopefully maybe we can collaborate again, because I'm sure everyone is going to have some really positive feedback. But I wanted to thank you for coming on, and thank you for sharing today with me. And we'll be back.
Thank you.